Welcome to Education Matters, presented by the Public School Forum of North Carolina. I'm your host, Mary Ann Wolf. The Public School Forum hosted our annual Eggs and Issues event this week, where we involved our top issues for 2023-2024. These issues include ensuring fair and competitive compensation for educators, growing, retaining, and diversifying the teacher pipeline, addressing the root causes of mental health and school safety crises, preparing students for the world they live in, and implementing, monitoring, and evaluating the Comprehensive Remedial Plan. Joining us to talk about these issues are Dr. Anthony Jackson, Superintendent of Chatham County Schools, Jacqueline Dickens, a teacher at Millennium Academy and Edgecombe County Schools, Maritza Rosado, the principal at Selma Elementary School in Johnston County Schools, and Onesty Sutton, a student at Duplin Early College High School in Duplin County Schools. Welcome. We are so pleased today to be joined by Dr. Anthony Jackson, who is Superintendent of Chatham County Schools. Welcome.
Good morning.
As always, there are so many things we can talk about in terms of education and what needs to happen, but one that is certainly top of mind for us right now are the vacancies we're seeing among teachers in the state, among teaching roles in the state, and also what are some of the factors that contribute to that. So one that is certainly that comes to mind is compensation. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that. Teachers in North Carolina had an average salary of around $53,000 in 2020, 2021. We know that beginning teaching pay is certainly an issue. So what are your thoughts on that, especially as it relates to your work?
Make sure that we are very clear that we're talking about the average salary. That means that there's some well above, some below. And I think in our work, we've got to begin the conversation not about comparing everybody to one another, but what is not only a livable wage, but a meaningful wage for the things that we say are important in our communities. We don't have to go very far to find people who will say that education is probably the most important asset in a community. Then my challenge to us all is to act like it, to do it, to figure out a way to provide our employees, not just teachers, but all of our employees who work in the sector of education, to provide them with a wage that is commensurate with what we have said is a priority for all of us. And I don't think we should be talking about minimums. We should be talking about what's meaningful for them and how we can compensate them in a way that would make them want to stay, compensate them in a way that would make them want to encourage others to do it, and compensate them, most importantly, in a way that they feel valued, supported, and respected.
What does this look like across North Carolina and in your experience?
Human capital pipeline is clogged. We've got people who want to come in, and we've got a system that makes it hard to get in with licensure and things like that. We have people who want to grow in the profession, but we have a clog in the pipeline where we don't recognize and support those who go on and expand their knowledge base and their understanding. So there are clogs in the pipeline that I believe if we could figure out a way to flush those out, we would have more movement within the profession. And I believe that could help us internally keep people who are seeking to do things outside of education. But what it looks like on the ground is that we now have positions that were traditionally very easy to fill. They're becoming more and more difficult. And I'm talking about elementary K-5 positions. I'm talking about social studies positions in the secondary level. And you add that to the already difficult areas of exceptional children's and mathematics and fine arts. And we struggle to make sure that we're able to provide those opportunities that we have promised our community. I think we've got to figure out a way to flush the pipeline and get things moving around those who want to get in, making it easier for them to get in without lowering standards. I think we can do that, but make the transition in a lot easier for those who are in the profession, providing opportunities. I'm a big believer and supporter of advanced teaching roles as a concept to grow and support those who want to be in. People come into education because they love it, and we do, but none of us took a vow of poverty. And so we have to make sure that people can live, if they're worried about just basic needs. In education, we know enough to know that you have to take care of basic needs before you can expect people to do some of those heroic things. And so I encourage us to be courageous in that work as we look for ways to compensate people differently, that we really answer that bell differently and open that door wide so that people will come and they will stay. I think we do a lot to attract, but I'm not sure we do enough to retain.
What do you think we need to do now, especially given the fact that we live in a state that does have a very strong economy?
Will whatever initiative that's on the table put a highly qualified teacher in front of children? Will it put an effective leader at the head of every school? Will it provide opportunities and resources for every single child in the state so that they can live out and reach those hopes and dreams that their parents have for them when they leave, when they drop them off at the curb? And most importantly, will it in fact grow our state? And so if they meet that threshold, then I think we've got a lot of things that we can do. I think we have to think differently. I think we have to problem solve differently. And I think we have to be open. Schools are still amazing places. I've had a great career, and I would say to anyone, I don't doubt it. I don't regret it. I don't doubt that I made the best decision for a lifelong vocation. And so I would encourage you to give education a look. If you love children, give education a look. We've got a long way to go, but I believe that there are people who have good hearts and goodwill who want to make that happen. And I just think that we need to really just put our shoulders to the wheel and figure out what we need to do, not just for today, but for the future, so that our kids will be taken care of and our communities can continue to grow.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, as always, for being here and sharing your experience with us.
Thanks. It's been fun.
I am so pleased to be joined by Ms. Jacqueline Dickens, a teacher at Martin Millennium Academy in Edgecombe County Schools. One of the areas, that comes up a great deal is the fact that we do right now have a teaching shortage, and there are many reasons that have contributed to that. And one that comes up often is around salary. And so you are a first-year teacher, part of the Scholar Teachers Program in Edgecombe. But can you talk a little bit about how teacher compensation and the fact that our state, is well below the national average, how that has affected you and what you hope to see in the future?
So I was shocked to know that the average wage in North Carolina is below the livable income. Becoming a teacher, especially a first-year teacher, only fits a certain group of people. As a first-year teacher, I've been fortunate that I don't have any children. I don't have a family of my own quite yet. So I can't imagine how tough it can be when you have to make those choices and whether you can pay for your child to be able to go to the hospital or if you can pay a bill tomorrow. Given the responsibility, given the great power that teachers have in society, it was very disheartening to hear that teachers are being paid below, obviously what they're worth and below the average livable wage. Hopefully teachers are paid enough so that if a teacher graduated, so it wouldn't be something that would keep a great teacher from becoming a teacher because of the wage. I don't think that's fair to all the children that have to come to school, that need an education, that they have to have substitutes every single day because there isn't a certified teacher in the classroom and a qualified teacher in the classroom.
We had 3,600 vacancies and another 3,600 positions were filled by teachers that weren't yet certified. And I'm curious if you're noticing that at all in your own district or in some of the districts that your peers are in too.
In this district in particular, right now at this school, we just lost the reading teacher for third grade, and that has just made things very difficult. And I wish it was something I could do about it, but I do think compensation will kind of help people and recruit. It will help get people into the field. We need more people into the field instead of them choosing other jobs because the money is there. In society, I guess it starts with legislation. We have to start looking at education as being a field that is not only needed, but is valuable. We know that students have to come to school to get an education, but how much value do they see in their education? How much value do their parents see in what's going on inside the schools?
The teacher workforce in North Carolina is not necessarily representative of the student population. And I know this varies based on districts, but it's still overall a challenge here. Can you share how important it is for our students to have teachers, that a diverse population of teachers?
I read this quote. It was like, it's hard to become what you cannot see. I think it's very important that students see people who they can relate to and relate to their struggle. Because if I never saw Dr. Bridges, the first African-American superintendent of Edgecombe County, would I ever have the dream to want to be in a position such as that? Hopefully that I'm a Black female, that they see me out in the community doing all these great things, being able to speak with you all today, that they say, that was my teacher. I know I can do great things as well. And I just hope them seeing me do all these things. I'm a little country girl. I'm from Speed, North Carolina. You probably never heard of it. This is not always what people from these small country areas envision themselves being able to do. And I hope that by them seeing me do all these positive things, them seeing me out in the community, hopefully it'll make a difference in the lives of my Black female students. Representation does matter, because it is hard to be what you cannot see.
Well, Jackie, you certainly inspire us, and I know you're inspiring your students and teachers around you. And I hope we can continue to work together to recruit and retain more teachers to have the impacts that we know our educators have each day. Thank you so much for being here. And after the break, we will be joined by Maritza Rosado, the principal at Selma Elementary School in Johnston County Schools, and Onesty Sutton, a student at Duplin Early College High School in Duplin County Schools.
Education Matters is brought to you each week in part by Participate Learning, uniting our world through global learning.
I am so pleased today to be joined by Maritza Rosado, the principal at Selma Elementary School in Johnston County Schools, and Onesty Sutton, a student at Duplin Early College High School in Duplin County Schools. Thank you so much to both of you for joining me today.
Thank you, Marianne.
Onesty, I'd love to start with you. Since the COVID pandemic began, there has been a 46% increase in youth with one or more major depressive episodes. What are students facing right now, and what are some of the ways that this can be addressed?
Right now, students are stressed and overwhelmed. I can definitely use myself as an example. I'm overly stressed with all the things that I'm doing within the school and my schoolwork. I think it all goes back to when we first came back to school after COVID. It's still affecting some of our students, and I completely understand it's not something that you just easily recover from after being confined in the house and being isolated from friends and family. Students are also going through things at home as well, and it's affecting their activity within the classrooms, which can sometimes also cause students to lose focus of what the teacher is teaching. It causes disruption in the classrooms. Here at Duplin Early College, we just simply make sure our students are safe and feel valued. Students can freely express themselves to teachers and our staff members. Our school counselor does pull the students out of class during their win time, and for win for us stands for what I need. It is good to know that we are in a place full of caring adults.
And Maritza, as a principal, I know that you are managing and leading a school with lots of different individuals. And in North Carolina, the number of our specialized instructional support personnel, which includes psychologists, counselors, and social workers, is lower than the recommended number nationally. What does this mean for our students, and how does it affect them?
The number of specialized and support personnel is not what it should be. Addressing grief and trauma is a very complex matter. And we know that even the teachers with the best intentions are not equipped. They don't have all the strategies to replace what is spending good time with a good therapist or a good school counselor. So this is a challenge for our students because they are really not getting the support that they need. Some of the things that we have done at our school is using some of our resources and providing additional support with trying to add additional personnel, but the funding is not really there. So we definitely need more support personnel in terms of school counselors. The ratio it's per school counselor per student is not sufficient to serve all their needs. We know that these issues with mental health and anxiety began before COVID. Now they have been enhanced by COVID. So we do need more support. We do need more staffing. Especially I feel nurses and mental health specialists are a great need.
You know, some of the areas that we know that they want and seek additional professional development is around culturally responsive pedagogy, but also social emotional learning. Why is that so important for the teachers in your school, but also beyond your school?
We have partnered with the Resilience and Learning Center. We did this before COVID, and the center was able to provide our teachers with trauma-informed professional development. And that professional development provided us an understanding of how the brain works, how trauma affects the brain. And it was very eye-opening for the teachers. It was very eye-opening to me because trauma, it's sometimes we think it's just seen in one particular socioeconomic level, but trauma is experienced by everyone, even the adults. So gaining that understanding of how trauma affects your brain, affects your well-being, affects your learning, was critical to the job that we done here. They also provided us with strategies like peace corners and other ways that we could be better equipped as educators to de-escalate, to help students self-regulate. So professional development, according to our teacher working conditions, the teachers were very pleased to be able to gain this understanding. And by doing these things, we increase time in the classroom, right? Because we have better understanding. So it yields positive results, not only for their well-being, the teachers' well-being, but in academics.
Absolutely. And we see those outcomes, you know, coming to fruition with our students. So definitely appreciate that. And Onesty, I know that you already referenced some of the things that Maritza is working with her teachers in her school to do. I'd love to hear from you. What does a culturally responsive curriculum look like, and what does it mean to students?
The experiences that our students have in the classrooms are very important. I think that teachers should include cultural projects in their content. For example, our biology teacher created projects for students to connect biology to their culture. One of our students for our Hispanic culture connected biology to the sport of soccer. Students connected biology to quinceañeras, African American hair textures, and Latin foods. Our Arabic teacher had a project in which students had to make a cultural poster, and that included food, clothes, holidays, and presented artifacts from their culture. This made every student feel valued and inclusive. Students were able to present their culture, both projects in the classes. I think that our teachers respect us for who we are.
Thank you so much for sharing those examples. I can just picture that in the classroom and beyond. I'd like to ask each of you, as we wrap up in our few final minutes, what advice do you have? Because you both have had a very important experience over the last couple of years. And I know you have good advice for state, district, school, and community leaders who are committed to improving equity and improving the lives of our students. What should they do? Definitely
providing the support staff. I think that's very important in terms of really meeting the needs of students. It helps with breaking down barriers in terms of what the students need for mental health. Social workers in a nutshell, more support staff so that teachers could still build relationships, still be as wonderful as they are, make connections, but get the specialized support that students need.
Thank you so much. And Onesty, what is your advice?
I think that our leaders should be more involved with the students and the teachers, and also listen to their voices because they are important. And I love when our students are able to feel like their voices are heard. All students should feel like they belong and see positive images of themselves in the classrooms and in the lessons that our teachers plan for us. All of us are different, but all have something special to contribute to our school and society, and this is what makes us great.
Well, thank you. Well, you certainly give all of us hope, and I so appreciate the strong leadership, Maritza, that you provide, and Onesty. Thank you so much for sharing the experience. And I know there are many great teachers and a great principal with you that make that very possible. So thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
After the break, this week's final word. The polarization of the last few years is undeniable. Many people have chosen vehement support of their own side over any alternatives without even exploring those options. But that should not and cannot be how we make our education policy decisions in North Carolina. Public schools are the cornerstone of our communities, our democracy, and our economy. Putting aside political differences and centering our students are imperative to making the policy decisions necessary to secure a better future for our state. Decades of disinvestment in public education, compounded by a life-changing pandemic, have left our schools in need of immediate action. And we must center that urgency in how our state is doing right now. North Carolina is ranked as the #1 state for business, but while also being ranked 48th in per pupil expenditure and dead last in school funding effort. The billions in surplus funds from the 2022-23 state budget prove that we have the means to provide better for our children, but as a state, we have chosen not to. The Public School Forum's top education issues reflect our belief that North Carolina can overcome differences in political ideologies in order to provide our children with the sound basic education guaranteed to them by our Constitution. We have several key top issues this year, including ensuring fair and competitive compensation for educators, growing, retaining, and diversifying the teacher pipeline, addressing the root causes of mental health and the school safety crises, preparing students for the world they live in, and implementing, monitoring, and evaluating the Comprehensive Remedial Plan. You can view the full report at our website. We are not talking about throwing money at problems and hoping they somehow get fixed. We're talking about research-based solutions and shifting from viewing education as an expense to seeing it as the investment that it is, an investment in our state, our economy, and our communities. If we want to remain a top state for business, we must also become a top state for education and prepare North Carolina's kids to become the leaders of tomorrow. Possibly more important than the investment, though, is the responsibility. In November 2022, the North Carolina Supreme Court issued a ruling upholding our state constitution and the rights of our students by calling on the state to fully fund years 2 and 3 of the Comprehensive Remedial Plan. We now have a legal obligation to do better, and it is my hope that it will motivate us to continue to provide our public schools with the resources they need without extensive legal and political battles. Divisiveness got us to our current state, which is why it cannot continue to have a place in education policy decision-making. This year, our lawmakers and stakeholders need to recognize the responsibility we all have and the need to act quickly to meet the needs of each and every student in North Carolina. Thank you for taking time with us to learn and think about education. That's all for today, and we'll see you next week.